So some of the risks that people see in Bitcoin. What if the power grid goes down? What if it crashes to zero? What if the government shuts it down? What if? And I remember when I was an accountant working at the accounting firm for 10 years, I had one of my closest friends there at work, one of my coworkers there. He would always say, I would always have these ideas, just like now. I would always have these ideas, these initiatives that I wanted to do. And he would always come out and say, well, what if this happens? Well, what if this happens? And I eventually got to the point where I said, you know what? It might, but you're spending too much of your life. I said, you're living in if land. That's not a reality. That's a land of make believe. You're spending your whole life worrying about these hypotheticals that may or may not happen. You spend too much time in if land. And one of my favorite, do I have it here? Yeah, let's watch this quickly. It should be in my history, but it reminded me of this video with Don Cherry from 20 years ago, probably one of my favorite guys that's ever lived, Don Cherry. And he did a post-game interview one time, and the reporter was kind of getting, he was asking him one of these questions, what if this, one of these hypothetical scenarios. And this is what Don Cherry replied with. This is one of my favorite quotes of all time. Look at this beauty. From the 70s, 50 years ago. Jesus.
End. When's it all going to end? You could just see when it was 3-1. One little mistake. Just waiting when it was 3-1. When's it going to end? I know how Williams feels now.
I guess a fellow like Rick Middleton really wanted to play badly against the Rangers.
Yeah, well,
if you'd have won, you'd have been playing the Rangers.
Yeah, if my aunt had nuts, she'd be my uncle.
Don, you've seen a lot of games in hockey. How would you rate this one? A seventh game of the Stanley Cup Series.
I don't know.
Oh my God. What a legend, Don Cherry. He said, well, if you won, you would have been playing the Rangers. He said, yeah, well, if my aunt had nuts, she'd be my uncle. And it's the same kind of thing. There's way too many people who live in that world where they're always thinking, what if? What if things go wrong? What if things go wrong? Well, I think we need to change it to what if things go right? And I think all you have to do is look at what's been happening in Bitcoin. Objectively look at what's been happening in Bitcoin. There's countries buying it. There's countries mining it. There's public companies. In the last week, there's been 5 or 6 new public companies announced that they're putting Bitcoin on their treasury. In January 2025, Trump, the president of the United States, is going to be adding Bitcoin to the US Treasury, Strategic Bitcoin Reserve. What if? It's not priced in, and most people don't think it's going to happen. But I would certainly say that it is. It's going to happen. And it might take till June if they go through the normal process, the Lummis bill. Or Trump could come out and say, sign an executive order, put it into place immediately. Everybody's buying Bitcoin. BlackRock, all the biggest money in the world is flowing into Bitcoin. And you're worried about things that could go wrong? Just take a look at this objectively and say, does it make sense for me not to have any Bitcoin right now? Imagine owning 0 sats right now after everything we've seen in the last 15 years, especially in the last year. Imagine owning 0 Bitcoin right now. So that's the biggest risk in my eyes right now, is not holding any Bitcoin, not holding any sats. And I said at the end of this, I said, as Saylor once said, only buy Bitcoin with the money you can't afford to lose. And I heard him say that live. I think it was at a Bitcoin conference. And I was like, what? Only buy Bitcoin with the money you can't afford to lose. Because most financial advisors out there who are very trapped in the fiat system will say, well, only buy Bitcoin with the money you can afford to lose. But Saylor's saying, only buy Bitcoin with the money you can't afford to lose. In other words, everything else is going to zero unless you hold Bitcoin. And just as famously, our favorite guy, Satoshi Nakamoto, as he once said, it might make sense just to get some in case it catches on. So the biggest risk in Bitcoin by far is owning zero sats, owning zero Bitcoin.